She gave her last $20 to a dragon soldier. 42 years later, military Humvees came back. Beginning. The summer of 2083 in the small, half-forgotten town of Milstead was dry and quiet. Dust clung to the sidewalks like old regrets, and the people who lived there had long since gotten used to the sense that the rest of the world had moved on without them. Among its residents was Eliza Mercer, a woman who lived alone in a creaking farmhouse just beyond the railroad tracks. Her hair had silvered, her back had stooped, and her eyes, still bright and searching, held the weight of memories too few people believed. For 42 years, Eliza carried with her a story that the townsfolk dismissed as the ramblings of a sentimental dreamer. She told it only rarely, and when she did, she spoke with such conviction that it was hard to call her a liar, though easier to call her mad. When she was just 20 years old, broke and working at a roadside diner, she had met a dragon soldier, not the storybook kind, but the kind genetically engineered during the last wars of Earth. They were tall, reptilian humanoid beings, armored in scales, bred for combat. Some had wings, some carried weapons fused to their very bones, and all were considered dangerous. Governments used them as shock troops during the interstellar conflicts of the mid-21st century, and when the treaties were signed, the survivors were scattered, banished, hunted, or left wandering between worlds. One late night in 2041, as she was closing the diner, a battered dragon soldier had walked in. His uniform was torn, his scales chipped, and his deep golden eyes were sunken with exhaustion. He had no money, only a plea. Water, bread, anything. Please. Eliza had looked at him and seen not a monster, not a weapon, but a soldier who had bled for causes larger than himself. She remembered the hollow ache in her wallet. Just $20 left until payday, but something in her heart decided. She gave him her last $20, pressed into his clawed hand, and quietly packed a bag of food and coffee from the diner's kitchen. The dragon soldier had frozen, staring at her as though she had broken every rule of the universe. His voice had rasped low. You gave freely, when all others cursed us. He had taken the gift, bowed deeply, and left without another word. For years afterward, Eliza wondered if she'd imagined it. No one believed her when she said a dragon soldier had sat at her booth, bleeding into the cracked vinyl. They told her the dragons had all been shipped off-world or executed. But she remembered the warmth of his scales when their hands brushed. She remembered the solemn vow in his eyes, though he spoke none aloud. And now, 42 years later, the past was coming back. It began with the rumble of engines. On a Tuesday morning, just as Eliza was pruning her overgrown roses, the distant thunder of heavy tires echoed down the dusty highway. At first she thought it was a convoy just passing through. But when the noise grew louder, rattling the glass of her windows, she stepped onto her porch and saw them. A fleet of military Humvees, armored and painted with insignias Eliza hadn't seen since her youth, rolled toward Milstead. Soldiers in desert fatigues rode on top, weapons strapped across their chests. Dust billowed in their wake, and the whole town began to stir, curtains pulling back, neighbors stepping into their yards with confusion and fear. The convoy stopped directly in front of Eliza's farmhouse. Engines idled. Doors opened. Soldiers stepped out in perfect formation, their boots crunching on gravel. At their head was a tall officer with a scar running across his jaw, eyes hidden behind dark lenses. Eliza Mercer? He called. Her heart skipped. Yes, she answered, though her voice trembled. The officer gave a short nod. Then he turned, gesturing to the rear vehicle. The back door opened, and out stepped a figure that made the world fall silent. It was a dragon soldier, taller than any human, his armor polished but scarred with history. His scales were burnished bronze, and though his body bore the weight of time, his golden eyes burned as bright as at night in the diner. Eliza's breath caught in her throat. It's you. The dragon soldier stepped forward, his voice deep but steady. I am called Kaldar. 42 years ago, in a place of flickering neon and cracked linoleum, you gave me your last $20 human. You gave it freely, without fear, without judgment. That gift sustained me through exile, through battle, through years of wandering. The soldiers around him shifted uncomfortably, and used to seeing their commander speak with reverence. Kaldar continued, his gaze locked on hers. I swore an oath that day. If ever the cycle of fate brought me the strength to repay you, I would come. Today, I fulfill that vow. Eliza's knees weakened, and she gripped the porch railing for support. Her neighbors watched from across the street, whispering among themselves. I don't need repayment, she managed, her voice breaking. I only did what was right. Kaldar bowed, his massive frame lowering with surprising grace, which is why it must be repaid. You showed mercy when the world denied it, and now your world is in danger. The officer stepped forward then, his jaw tightening. Permission to brief her, Commander? Kaeldar nodded. The officer explained. A rift had opened beyond the asteroid colonies, and remnants of hostile forces were making incursions toward Earth. Kaeldar had risen through the ranks of the Interstellar Peace Guard, leading both humans and dragons in defense of fragile alliances. And now, Earth was under quiet threat. But why me? Eliza asked. Kaeldar's eyes softened. Because when I had nothing, when even my own kin hunted me, you gave, because mercy is the rarest weapon, and you wielded it without hesitation. I asked for your counsel, Eliza Mercer, not as a soldier to the general, but as a friend to the one who reminded him what friendship meant. The world tilted beneath her. She was just an old woman in a forgotten town. Yet here stood an army, a dragon commander, and a promise echoing from across 4 decades. Rising conflict. That night, Milstead buzzed with rumors. Some said the military was recruiting Eliza. Others whispered that she was an alien collaborator. But Eliza herself sat awake at her kitchen table, staring at the $20 bill she had kept all these years, pressed between the pages of an old book. The next day, Kaeldar returned, this time alone. He ducked beneath her doorway, his wings folded close, and sat awkwardly in her kitchen chair. I remember you as a young woman, he said softly. Your eyes were sharp, your hands steady. I see the years upon you, and yet you are the same. Eliza laughed bitterly. I'm not the same. I'm just tired. Kaeldar tilted his head. And yet, you gave even when you had little. That is why I ask once more your guidance. How do we stop war before it begins? How do we remind humans and dragons that compassion can bridge the rift? Eliza swallowed hard. She wanted to say she had no answers. But when she looked at him, she remembered that young soldier in the diner booth, half dead and alone. She remembered how a simple act had rippled outward. Maybe, she thought, that was the answer. Small acts magnified. Then start small, she whispered. Don't come with fleets and weapons. Come with hands open. Let people see you not as a weapon, but as someone who remembers kindness. Kaeldar nodded slowly. Then I shall begin here. And so he did. For weeks, the dragon commander and his convoy remained in Milstead. Soldiers helped repair roads, cleaned the crumbling schoolhouse, and delivered medical supplies. Kaeldar himself joined in, his massive hands careful as he rebuilt fences and lifted broken beams. Children flocked to him, fearless, their laughter echoing as he showed them how to carve small trinkets from scrap metal. The town that once doubted Eliza now looked at her differently. They saw how one act of compassion had brought an army not of conquest, but of healing. But danger loomed. One evening, as the sun bled crimson over the horizon, Eliza saw Kaeldar's expression darken. Scouts had reported enemy ships slipping past the fences. War was coming faster than expected. Will you fight again? She asked quietly. Kaeldar bowed his head. If I must, but I would rather fight with your weapon, mercy. Ending. The first strike came on a stormy night. Raiders from the rift, sleek ships descending with weapons flashing. The people of Milstead panicked as sirens blared. But they did not find fear alone waiting for them. They found Kaeldar. The dragon soldier stood tall in the town square, his wings spread wide, his voice booming as he ordered his soldiers into formation. Eliza stood beside him, clutching her old shotgun, though she knew it was useless. The battle was brief but fierce. The raiders underestimated the resolve of a small town protected by both human soldiers and a dragon commander who had once been shown mercy. When the smoke cleared, the invaders fled back to the skies, their forces broken. Milstead was safe. For now, as dawn rose, Eliza stood on her porch, exhausted but alive, watching Kaeldar dress his troops. He turned, meeting her gaze with a quiet smile. You gave $20, he said softly, and the universe gave 42 years to return it. Today it is repaid. Tears blurred her vision. No, she whispered. It was never a debt. It was a gift. Kaeldar bowed deeply, then rose, his massive wings catching the sunlight. Then let us both give freely. For mercy, like war, ripples outward. The convoy departed weeks later, called to fend other worlds. But Milstead was never the same. Neither was Eliza. For the rest of her days, she carried not just a memory of a gift given, but the living proof that compassion, no matter how small, can echo across galaxies, binding species, bridging wars, and changing the fate of worlds. And sometimes, all it takes is a last $20 bill.